English Story Times, Book 27, Story 10. The can of red paint. There's a can of red paint on the right. There's a can of red paint on the right. And a paintbrush in a glass. And a paintbrush in a glass with paint thinner on the left. With paint thinner on the left. There's a can of red paint on the right and a paintbrush in a glass with paint thinner on the left. What's the liquid? What's the liquid the brush is in? The brush is in. What's the liquid the brush is in? Well, there's a can of red paint on the right and a paintbrush in a glass with paint thinner on the left. Line 2. Since the paintbrush is in thinner, since the paintbrush is in thinner, then the painter must have been painting with oil paint. Since the paintbrush is in paint thinner, then the painter must have been painting with oil paint. Question: what can we assume if the paintbrush is in thinner? What can we assume? What can we assume? If the paintbrush is in thinner, if the paintbrush is in thinner, what can we assume if the paintbrush is in thinner? Well, since the paintbrush is in thinner, the painter must have been painting with oil paint. Line 3. There are two kinds of paint. There are two kinds of paint. Oil and latex. Oil and latex. There are two kinds of paint, oil and latex. Question: how many types of paint are there? How many types of paint are there? Well, there are two kinds of paint, oil and latex. Line 4. Oil paint is more durable, but it dries slower, smells stronger, and the solvent is needed, to clean up. Oil paint is more durable, but it dries slower, smells stronger, and the solvent is needed to clean up. Okay, line 5. Most people prefer painting with latex paint, because it dries fast, doesn't smell too strong, and cleans up with soap and water, Okay. Most people prefer painting with latex paint because it dries fast, doesn't smell too strong, and cleans up with soap and water. Question: why is latex paint more popular? Well, most people prefer painting with latex paint because it dries fast, doesn't smell too strong, and cleans up with soap and water. Okay, your reading out loud goal. Here we go. There's a can of red paint on the right and the paintbrush in the glass with paint thinner on the left. Since the paintbrush is in thinner, then the painter must have been painting with oil paint. There are two kinds of paint, oil paint and latex. Oil paint is more durable, but it dries slower and smells stronger, and a solvent is needed to clean up. Most people prefer painting with latex paint because it dries fast, doesn't smell too strong, and cleans up with soap and water.